All right, welcome back everybody. My name is Nick. This is Swiftful Thinking, where we cover all things Swift and Swift UI related. And I first want to thank those of you who are actually watching this playlist in order. I put in a lot of work to actually make these playlists in a very specific order. I think it does help people learn. So leave a comment on this video if you're one of those people that's actually watching it in order. I'm very curious how many of you guys are jumping around versus watching it in order. I can't really tell. But I can tell sometimes based on your comments if you skipped a couple videos. But anyway, if you watch this playlist in order, you're probably wondering, why have we not uploaded or downloaded an image or a video so far? Because obviously one of the key parts of our app is images, and that's obviously because we actually can't store images in the Firestore database. I guess technically there's a way to do it, but we shouldn't. Instead, we should be using the Firebase Storage product. That's what we're going to look at in this video. Storage is for things that are basically larger files that we don't want to store in a NoSQL database. So these are things like images, videos, audio, or kind of any other just large file that we want to store on the server. So we're going to use Firebase Storage in this video. We're going to start very simple. We're going to write some code. How can we save an image? How can we fetch an image? And then we're going to get a little bit more complex because I want to cover everything in storage in one video. So we're going to look at a bunch of ways that we can actually set up the storage database so that we can manage it more efficiently later on. I've built many Firebase apps in the last couple of years, and the first couple, I just wrote the code as fast as I could and I got it working. But I ran into a lot of problems after I started to scale those apps because I didn't set up my storage-based database in a smart and efficient way. And so to save you guys some of that trouble, we're going to go through some examples in this video that can hopefully help you guys set this up the right way the first time. And at the very end of this video, after we figure out how to read and write from the database, we're also going to look at really quickly how we can actually start reading from the database by using basically all of these Swift UI image SDKs. So things like Async image, those require us to have a URL to download from. So we're going to look at how, after we upload to the database, how can we actually get that remote URL so that we can then use Async image and all the other Swift UI components with those images. I hope you guys who are watching this are following the course in order and not just jumping to this video, because we are going to use the app that we've been building for the last couple of videos in this one. Although if you are just joining, you will be able to at least follow the majority of the code here without having to make the whole app. But so in the past couple videos, we built out our Cloud Firestore database. We built out all these user profiles, this user collection with user profiles and admin and products. In the last video, we wrote security rules around the whole database. But one thing that we did not touch on that you are probably wondering is, what on earth do we do with images? Because this Cloud Firestore database actually does not support images. So you notice when we added the products, we added in references to images. So like URLs we added here, but we didn't actually store the images themselves in the database. And that's because we can't. So what happens if we want to, so what would happen in our app right now if we wanted to add, maybe for this user, we want to add a profile picture? Well, we need to upload the image somewhere, and the place to do that in Firebase is actually the storage product. So the storage is separate from the database, and the storage is where you can store larger files. Primarily, we use this for images, for videos, for audio files, basically anything that is larger or we don't want to put into a document in our database, or maybe we can't put into the database. Then we use the storage product. And this is why Firebase is awesome, because it has all of these products built into the same SDK. And so let's come in here and actually get started on storage. And it even tells us this is where we can retrieve and store and retrieve. So read and write user generated files like images, audio, video without server-side code. Let's click create. Now, as soon as we do this, it's going to ask us, what rules do we want for our storage? So if you were with me in the last video, we wrote security rules for our Firestore database. These security rules work the exact same way. So I'm not going to go in and actually write security rules for this storage because we just learned how to do it in the last video, but you guys can probably figure that out based on what we've learned already. So for now, let's just start in test mode so that anyone prior to 1 month from now will be able to read and write from our storage bucket. Go ahead and click next, and you're going to notice that we cannot change the location of our cloud storage, and that is because it automatically has to be in the same location as the location of our Firestore database. So if you're just joining and you haven't set up a Firestore database, it might let you change the location here. And if that is the case, you should be aware that you want to put your storage location basically where your users are, not where you're sitting, but where your users are, because this is basically where the server is going to sit. But anyway, done. Let's keep moving forward, guys. Creating our default bucket. Sweet. While we do this, let's jump into the documentation for storage. So I'm going to come to go to docs, go to build, and let's go to storage. iOS, of course, because iOS is king. And let's come down here, install the Firebase SDK. We've done that. Set up the console, set up your security rules, add a location, add storage to your app. So we need to find the cloud storage library. If you don't have the Firebase SDK in your project, go ahead and add it. We do, and we just need to add this library. So I'm going to come into Xcode. I'm going to go to my project navigator, go down to the frameworks, and just like all the other frameworks we've been adding, we're going to now come here and add storage. I don't think we're going to use the combine functions, so I think we're just going to need the regular storage package. Click add in our app, and now we can import the storage module and actually write some code. All right, let's see what it looks like in the docs here. Basically, configure Firebase, we've already done that. Set up an app delegate, we've already done that. And then get a reference to the cloud storage service. And so this works basically the same way as our database. So if you guys remember in our, let's see, Firestore, what do we call it? So we made some manager classes in the last couple of videos, like the products manager. Right, the products manager referenced the Firestore database, and then we had to point to where we want to push or pull from. This is the exact same way, but instead of saying Firestore, we're saying storage. Right, so I love how Firebase has made their SDK so that all of these products, although they're different, they work more or less the same way. And so, let's see here. We don't need to do that. We don't need to do that. Custom app. We want to upload files, and then we're going to want to download files. Super simple. To upload a file, all we do is we get a reference to where we want to write to. We add in the name of the file that we want to save it as. So just like you're saving an image on your computer and you have a file name, right? You have a folder and a file name, where the reference is the folder, and then we add the file name. We're going to do .jpg, and then basically after you do that, it's going to give you the path back. Let's see, upload files. We basically just have to call on the reference, we call put data. So we're going to put it on the server. And then after we upload, we're going to get the download URL. So the URL of where it is on the server. All right. Let's write some code. I think that's enough documentation for us. Jump into our project here, and let's first create a new group and call this storage. We'll move it down right below our Firestore, or maybe below the security rules. I'm going to right click new file, and let's call this our StorageManager. So where we're going to put all of our storage code. We're going to import storage, Firebase Storage, and let's create a final class and call it StorageManager. Open the brackets. Cool, we're gonna use a singleton like we've been doing for the other managers in this video, in this series. Static let shared, set it equal to a instance of StorageManager, and we'll make the init private init, parentheses, and then open close the brackets. All right, and just like we did for our user manager, we needed to get a reference. Where is it? What is? Oh, we should move all these data models soon to their own files. But the user manager, we created a singleton, and then we had the reference of where we are going to read and write to. And this is going to be the same way. So let's go in our storage manager and let's add in a private let storage. We'll set it equal to storage.storage.reference. This is just the root reference location of our database. All right, let's write a function to upload an image. So I'm going to say, let's call it save image. And we'll open the brackets here. So let's see what the actual function looks like. So we'll say let something equals try08. And what is the reference? Where do we want to actually write to? So we'll write to the storage dot put data. Put data. We're going to use the put data. We want to use the async method because we love Swift concurrency. And so this will be asynchronous and throws. And we need some data, obviously. So let's pass in some data, type data. It's going to be the image data that we are uploading to the server. So when you upload like images or audio or video, you don't actually upload an image, you upload the data of the image. And then when you download it, you download that data and you convert it back into an image. So we're going to upload the image here. And then metadata, we need to actually include metadata here. This is something that I think is loosely in their documentation. You can upload data without metadata and it'll go and it'll work. But the server will not know what type of data that it is saving. And sometimes that will actually end up corrupting or causing problems within the data itself. And then when you go to download it, it's maybe corrupted. So it's a good idea to always include the metadata when you are uploading. And so to do that, let's just create some metadata. We'll say let meta, and we'll set it equal to storage metadata. And then all we need to do is say the meta.content type, and we're going to tell it what type of metadata we are uploading. And this is going to be an image, and we're going to use .jpeg is the type of images that we are uploading. If you're doing PNG, I think you can change this to PNG. We're going to go with JPEG for now. Let's take the meta, pass it in here. And all right, so this reference is like sort of like a folder or a collection that we had in Firestore. So we don't just write to a folder, we write to a document within the folder, right? And so we really want to do storage and then say .child and put in a document ID here. So let's create let's say let path, and we'll set it equal to, let's do a random generated string. Let's say UUID .string. So a random generated string, because we don't really care what the file name is right now. And we're going to save it as a .jpeg. So just like the metadata that we're sending. This is basically, when you save something on in your Finder, right? Every file type has some extension at the end, right? .txt, .swift, .jpg, and that's all this is. This is just, we're going to upload the file and we need to include the file extension. Put in the path here. And let's go ahead and let's see what we get back actually. This is storage metadata. So let's call this return metadata. And then let's get some data from that. So we'll say I think we can get the path back. Let path equals returned metadata dot, I think image info dot maybe path. So the full path of the object. We can get, what else can we get? Maybe the name. I think the name is similar to the path, but maybe it's not the full path. It's just, yeah, I think the name's going to give us like
this part of the path back. Call this name. We got the path and we got the name, and we can see that these are probably optional. Let's call this return path and return the name. Optional string. So if we upload this correctly, both of these should be valid. There should be a path, there should be a name. So let's safely unwrap them. We'll say guard let, comma, and this. So make sure we get both of them. Else, if we don't get both of them, let's throw an error back to our app. We'll say URL error, pretend like there was a bad server response. And even if it did upload, but we didn't get a good path back, we'll throw an error. So these are us to re-upload. That's fine. And then we're going to return from this function. And let's return both the path and the name. So I'm going to say return, make a tuple, and we're going to return the path, which is of type string, and a name, which is of type string. Let's include the return path, returned name. All right. Let's call this from our code, see if it works. And of course, we got to write a little bit of UI code to actually get an image to save. Let's go to our profile view. So that's this view in our app, which does not look very pretty, but it works. It's got some code there. So we want to add some sort of like button here that opens up an image picker. So I'm going to add maybe below favorite movie, let's add a photos picker. This is something that has been added to SwiftUI fairly recently, but I think we need to import. Profile view model should be in its own file, Nick. What are you doing? Let's create a profile view model so we can get this out of our view file. A little bit better. Cut this. Move it over there. Get out of here. All right. Stay organized. And I think we need to import the Photos UI framework. And now we should have access to the Photos Picker. Yeah, there we go. Let's do Photo Picker now. And I absolutely do not like that there are so many initializers here. I don't even know which one to pick. I think we want one where we can bind to a selection. And we can access the photo library. So the photo library I'm looking at here. And I think I also want the label. This one looks pretty good actually. Matching photo library label. Let's try this one. I'm going to hold the option button and click enter so we get the full initializer. All right. When we add a photos picker, we need to bind to a photo picker item. So up here, let's create an @state private var selected item. Let's make it of type photo picker item. Make it optional and set it equal to nil to start. Let's bind to it. Let's money sign selected item. Matching, what on earth does that mean? What type of images do we want to pull from the user's device? So we could do time lapse, panoramas. Of course, let's keep it simple and just pull images. Preferred item encoding, I do not have any idea, so let's just leave it blank. And of course, we want to pull from the shared library, which is just their regular photo library. Click enter. And on the label, let's just put a little text that says select a photo. All right, so let's build and run. Hopefully this works. All right, let's get in here, select a photo. Oh, I think we're going to crash. Let's see. Ready? Oh, no, it worked. How did that work? I'm surprised. All right, maybe it won't work in a minute. Let's see. Yeah, I have some real bad mock images of some random person. So let's just use one of them. I'm going to click it, click enter, and it looks like it worked. So when we are binding to selected item, this is setting photos picker item. And the question obviously is what we're going to do with this photo picker item. We then want to take the data from the image and upload it to Firebase. So let's write some code. Let's go into our view model. And let's see here. Let's write another function that says save profile image. And obviously we're gonna have to pass in some sort of data. So we'll pass in data of type data. And let's say here, we need a task. We need to let's get that path and the name from try08 photo, what do we call it? StorageManager, shared, save image. We'll pass in the data. All right, if it's successful, let's just print out success, and let's print out path, and let's print out the name. Sweet. Let's call this from our view now. I'm going to jump back to the profile view. And when this gets selected, since we're binding to it, when this is selected, let's just upload to Firebase. So I'm going to add let's put it maybe down here. We'll put it on change. So on change of the selected item, we'll say, let's see, selected item is optional. So we'll say if let item or if let new value. So if we do get that new value, we'll call view model, save image, profile image, and we need data. And of course, it is not of type data. Let's see here. What do we want to do? We want to convert it to data. Let's do the conversion in the view model as well. So let's take that photo picker item in the view model so that we can do it all inside this task. So we have here the photo picker item. Let's make item. I think we need to import the photos UI here. Cool. Now we can get this photo picker item. And so let's try to get the data from the item. So we'll say let data equals try08. Let's see, item dot. It's a new function we've never used before. I've only ever used it for this case. Load transferable. We want to transfer the item into data, the type of data. So we'll do data.self. And so cannot find photo picker's item. Cannot find photos picker item. We imported photos UI. I think it should find it. I think it should find it. I don't know why I can't find it in scope. Maybe it's not compiling. Maybe we need to import Swift UI. Maybe we need to import both Swift UI and import Photos UI. All right, looks like that works. That's interesting. And let's see, the data is optional. So let's do a quick guard let, else return. I don't really care about errors right now because this is just a tutorial video. So let's try to upload it, get that success. We'll call save profile image from the on change. So on here, we'll say if let value, save profile image with the value. Let's build and run. Let's upload our first image, guys. This is exciting stuff. Hopefully it works. I give it a 50% chance. Let's go to the profile. Let's go to select a photo. Let's select a photo and let's see what printed out. Oh, it might have actually worked. All right, so I got a success that printed out here. Let me move it up for you guys. Success. And it looks like the path and the name are the exact same right now, which later they're going to change, which is why we're printing out both. Let's go check this out in our storage bucket. So we're going to go in here, we're going to come to our storage bucket, and let's reload it, and boom, look at that. Just like we said, this is the auto-generated id.jpeg. The metadata uploaded, because we can see here the type that it knows that this is. So adding the file name and adding the metadata are separate. And the cool part here is if I click on it, I can literally see the image. I can even get a unique URL specific for this image. Shout out to this guy. I have no idea who this is. Found this was like a free mock image somewhere. If you're watching and you're that guy, do a shout out. We can see the exact location of this file, metadata, cool. But it worked. We uploaded our file, right? We can also manually upload files here if we want to, but I do not want to right now. I also want to note that those security rules, just like in Firestore, we can add security rules here. Literally looks the exact same. And we'll go back to our files. And this is looking good. This is cool. If I upload more photos though, I think they are just automatically uploaded. This is working and this is cool, but I want to talk about maybe about how we can stay organized here. So if all of the users in our app uploaded images to this location, we're just going to end up with a massive list of images right here, right? So if I have 1 million users and every user has 5 images, I'm going to end up with this one list basically of 5 million images. And it's going to be really hard for me to navigate and stay organized. Now, obviously, every image is going to have a unique ID, so that would work in theory, but it's not very organized from a developer sense. Also, like, what if I start uploading maybe images for my products or images, Spotify's images for, the songs and the album covers? You're probably going to want to store like that data separately from the user profile image data, right? We should probably stay organized with some sort of file system like we would if this was our computer. And so just like on our computer, we can actually create folders and upload to specific folders. All right, so let's try making a folder now. So I'm going to go back into my code. I'm going to go to where we are uploading, which is our StorageManager. Right? And so let's create another reference that we should upload to. So in here, just like we did with the users collection and the products collection, we're going to create another reference, private var, and we'll call this the images reference. They're not called collections here, they're called references. And this will be of type storage reference. And the images is just going to be a folder within the regular storage bucket. So we'll do storage.child and we'll pass in images. And now we can upload it to the images folder within the storage bucket. So here, instead of just storage, I'm going to reference the images reference. Let's build and run our app again. Cool. Let's save a photo. Hopefully we get a success state. Success. And you'll notice here that the path and the name are now different. Before they were the exact same. And so the path is that full path from the root to where the image is, which includes the folder title, and the name is just that final extension here. And I should also note that if you have specific names, like if you want every user's profile image to be profile image 1, you can make your own names here as well. We're just doing auto-gen IDs because it's a little more scalable, at least for this use case. Let's look at our bucket, and we can see now basically we have a folder of images. So this is awesome. This is going to be, I think, maybe a little better for our app because we can store maybe images in one location, we have videos in another location, and things like that. I'm going to take this one step even further. So even if we have just an image bucket, but if we have 1 million users, we're going to put 1 million users' profiles into this one bucket. And that's still, it will work. This storage is like super scalable. Like it's okay if you have hundreds of thousands of items in a single folder. But for me personally, I would rather just be more organized so that I know exactly where a user's image is in my database. Like I would like to go into a folder for this user and see all of that user's images in one location. So let's play around with this even more. And I'm going to come in here and make another reference. We're going to do a private var. I'm going to call this user reference. Open the brackets. And so this will be of type, this will return a storage reference. And we're going to again access the storage.child. And instead of going into an images folder, let's go into a users folder. So it's going to have essentially the same setup as my Firestore database. So I have a users collection, and then each user has a user document. And here I'm going to have a users folder, and then inside that folder, all of the images for that user. Come back to our code. We're going to go to users, and I'm going to say, private func, and I'm going to say users.child, and let's pass in the user ID. So each user will have their unique location in our storage. So now let's get the user reference and use that instead. And of course, we don't have a user ID, so let's also pass it into this function, user ID of type string. pass that into here. Let's build and run. We're going to get the error because we need to inject the user ID now. Cool. And I think just like we have our user from up here, we can just go here and user.user ID. Cool. Build and run. Let's try this one more time. All right. Hopefully it works. You guys think it'll work? I hope so. We'll see. And let's upload the birthday cake. Cool picture. And it looks like we got an error. Grant access claim replies error. I do not know what that error is. Let's try another one. Maybe it's just a bad image. Yeah. Okay. All right. That image works. I don't know what. Oh, maybe it was because that image is on my iCloud and not on the device. I'm going to ignore that. Hopefully you guys are not facing that same error. Cool. Path looks like it's changed now. We have a path of users/user ID/ the auto ID for the image and the name of the image, of course. Let's check it out in our bucket here. Let's reload. And now we're not going to go with this. We're going to go with these users. And I got a whole folder for this user. So now if I have 100 users, I'll have 100 different folders. And within each one, I will see all of the images for that user. So arguably a little more scalable, I would say yes. Some people might say it's annoying that we now have to manage this extra layer of user reference. But for me personally, this saves me a lot of headache in the long run. And yeah, now you know how to do it. All right, let's write a little bit more code before we wrap up here. Save image definitely works. But I do also want to just touch on, we're not going to do this. Let's also create a helper function for save image that has the same syntax as this function, open brackets, except this one we pass in an image of type UI image. Because it's very common in iOS apps. So getting that user picker type and then converting it to data is very unique to the photo picker that we just used. More often than not, users are going to have UI images. Maybe it's coming from somewhere else in your app and you want to upload the UI image and then take that image and convert it to data. And in order to access UI image, we need to import UI kit. And very simply, all we need to do is convert an image to data. And so we can say guard let data equals the image.jpeg data. And if we want to compress the image, we can put it right here. So I'm going to put one meaning 100%, meaning basically no compression. If I wanted to compress it really small, I could do like 10% or something like that. But we're just going to do 1, and we'll say else, and we'll throw URL error dot, I don't know, just throw some random thing for now because I don't want to write my own error message. And then now that we have data, let's actually just call our real function. So here we will return the save image function and we'll pass in our data and our user ID. So now we have the ability to save it from data or from image. What we got to do, try wait. All right, a couple things I want to point out here. We're not going to actually run this, but a couple things I want to point out. Firstly, our image, we're using JPEG, we're using JPEG, of course. If we wanted to use PNG, this would look like PNG data. So I'm going to actually copy that and I'll comment it out here so you guys have a reference. If your images if you have a transparent background on your images, you need to use the PNG data. The JPEG does not have transparent backgrounds. Although it is important to note that PNG, I believe, is a larger file size. So most of the time you want to use JPEG. Second thing I want to note here is that the compression quality. So if you were with me in the Doggram course, I made a Doggram course probably 4 years ago now. It was on my Udemy. I'm deprecating it. I do not recommend anyone to take it anymore. I thought it was cool at the time, but that was before I even started a YouTube channel. If you were in that, we wrote our own image compression function. And we can basically do that here as well, where we basically loop on the data and we keep continually compressing it until it's a very specific file size, whatever file size we want. And the reason this is important is because when we upload to Cloud Firestore or upload to any server, it's important to think about the image size, because if you're using a modern day iPhone, those image sizes are massive. They're huge. And most of the time when you're downloading an image on an app, especially like a user profile, they're probably just thumbnails. You might need a very small version of the image. And so if you upload a massive image, oftentimes you don't really want to then also have to download a massive image on a million users' devices. So you want to add some sort of compression logic to the data that you are uploading. Now, we are not going to do this in this video. If you Google image compression on Swift, I just did it real quick. There are Stack Overflow posts on how to do it. So it looks like this person's doing like a while loop and trying to loop around while it is decompressing. We're not going to do that in this video, but I'm going to point out to you guys, and I would probably recommend, is Firebase actually has extensions. These are like kind of like add-ons to the core products of Firebase. And one of those extensions is, drumroll, one of those extensions is not appearing on the home page anymore. It is resize images. This is a made by Firebase extension that is super powerful. Basically, you install this into your project and you tell it what size images to resize the original into. And so here you can tell it like 200 by 200, a 400 by 400, and you can add in a whole bunch of these if you want. So for example, I could upload an image. I can determine whether or not I want to save the original image. And then I can also say, give me a thumbnail size, give me maybe a full screen size, give me an iPad size, and then give me the full size. And then what happens is you upload the image the same way we wrote our code right now, but on the server, Firestore is watching basically our storage bucket, and it will automatically resize the image to the resized values and then save those resized versions in basically a child folder of wherever you saved it. So if I am saving to our storage bucket here, you probably see another folder pop up right next to this that says like resized images or whatever they are naming it these days. It's really cool. It's really powerful. We're not doing it in this video. Maybe I'll do it if a lot of people want to see it, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Part of the reason we're not doing it is because you do need to upgrade your Firebase project to the paid plan, because this does cost extra money to resize the images. That said, I have put this on many projects before, and the costs are literally less than like $1 a month, which is extremely low. So for all that functionality and all the data it's going to save your app from all the users actually loading smaller images, I would say it is absolutely worth it. We can even see here in the billing, it says you will be charged a small amount, typically around 1 cent a month. Like, I don't even understand why they are making us pay for it at that rate, but yeah, it's definitely worth it. It's pretty awesome. Anyway, that's enough of a tangent, Nick. Let's get back to writing some code. And I think we only have really one more thing that we want to do, and that is download the image, right? Because now we uploaded it, but we don't see it on our app yet. We want to actually download it as well. All right, so let's jump back into our project here, and we're going to write another function, func, and let's call this get data. I think we got to download data from the server first. We can go to the Firebase docs, download files, and it looks like it is as simple as you get the reference and then you get data. Not hard stuff. I think we can do it. And so let's get some data. And so we're going to need the path of where we saved it to. So we're going to need to try await. And where are we saving our image? The user reference and then child. So let's get the user reference in here. Pass in the user ID of type string. And let's add in a child. So that child, remember, is the path that we uploaded, which I think is actually the name that is being returned, right? So it's this name here. So that's what's going to come back. And so we're going to pass in here, let's call it the path. And we will pass that in. And we're going to call dot data We need to give it a max size. This is literally an image size. For now, I'm just going to do like the largest size possible, which is 3 times 1024 times 1024. I think that's the number that they have in their docs as well. If you have a max size, like you don't want the app to ever download an image larger than X, put that in here. And this is async and throws, and hopefully it returns some data back to our app. Let's try this and see if it works. What do we want to do? We want to return data. Cool. One thing we are going to need to do though is after we upload this image, we need to save this path to the user profile, right? Otherwise, we're never going to know what the auto-generated ID from here was. So go back to profile view. We have save profile image. And what we actually need to do is after we save the profile image, we want to actually upload to, we also want to upload to the user profile that saved image path. So let's go back into our, our user manager. And we have a function for update user premium status, copy and paste it. And let's add another one, update user profile image. And we're going to pass in the user ID and we're going to pass in a path of type string. So let's say update user profile image path. That makes more sense. And so inside the user, database user, we should include a path. Let's add in another, we'll say let path of, we'll say, not just path, let's say profile image path of type string. And let's see, let's initialize one here. Profile image path is nil. Let's add profile image path of type optional string, set it equal to nil. Self.profile image path equals profile path. Let's add in our coding keys. Case profile image path equals. Let's use the profile image path. Lowercase snake case. Definitely my favorite for Firebase. We want to decode if it is a string at this key. And of course, we want to also encode it with the profile image path and profile path. Think that works. Back down to our function, the coding key is going to be profile image path, and we're going to pass in that path. Let's go back to our code, our actual save profile image. And here, let's say try await, user manager, share, update profile image path for user.userid, and we will pass in name. So again, the name is just the string at the end of that path. Because when we use the function in our storage manager, the user reference is referencing this part, and then the path is referencing this part. Cool. Last but not least, go to our profile view and below the photo picker. And so let's try this here. So we can get the image data from that function. So after this task, so in this task, we're going to load the current user. So after we get the current user, we should have access to the path in the user object, right? So the load current user is going to set the user object, and then that should have the path. So in here, we're going to say if let path equals view model user dot profile image path. Then let's say let data equals the storage manager shared dot get data for the user ID, which we need here. So let's actually say if let user equals view model dot user, if user dot profile image path, and now we have access to the user dot user ID and the path. And if we get this data, let's then put it up here on the screen. So we'll say at state private var image data of type data equals nil. And on the screen, last but not least, if let image data. If we have the image data, we can then try to unwrap it into an actual image. We'll say let image equals UI image. From data, we'll pass in our image data. and then we will put in on the screen an image from UI image, and we'll pass in that image that we just created. Let's resize it. Let's make it resizable. Let's make it a scale to fill. Give a frame of maybe 150 by 150 and some corners of 10. Let's see here. Call can throw. All right, we got one error here. Call can throw. Let's mark this as try await. And let's actually, and this is a bit of bad architecture for loading the image. We're going to change it in 1 second. So I don't want to spend too much time fixing it right now. Let's see. Let's just build and run it. We need to upload another image so that we get the image in our user profile, right? So my user database users profile here. If I upload an image, path should start saving here because remember we just added that function. So let's try to upload an image. Click this one. And boom, profile image path. And that looks perfect. That's exactly the path. I'm going to now restart the app. And hopefully when we appear, we will then get that image on the screen. And it looks like it didn't work because we didn't do anything with this data. Oh my God. Self.image data equals data. One more time. I'm getting sloppy. I'm sorry, guys. Maybe it'll work this time. Cross your fingers. Boom. Awesome. All right, so we got our image and it worked perfectly. How can we make this better? And there is many ways that we can optimize this now. So firstly, get data. It's okay, but really what we're getting an image here. So let's create another function called get image. And same thing, except we're going to return a UI image. And we're going to call our first function, we'll say let data equals try await get data for user ID and path. And then we'll say guard let image equals UI image from data, we'll pass in the data. We'll say else. So if we try to download an image and we can't actually convert it into an image, we will throw an error and we'll just say URL error bad server response for now. And if we get the image, let's return it back to our application. Cool. So now we can come back here and we can actually just say get image. And then we can put the image on the screen. So up here, we can say maybe image of type UI image. And down here, we will say self.image equals image. This should be image. And then finally, we already have an image. So then we can just say if let image, put it on the screen. All right. Let's build and run. Hopefully this still works. Go to the profile and the image appears. That's great. That is perfect. Let's continue to optimize this, right guys? Because honestly, downloading images is crucial to your app. So we want to do this the best way possible. So firstly, let's talk about when we are saving that image. So let's go into the save profile image function. And what we're doing now works. We're passing in that last part of the name. But you never know, right? If maybe for some reason we start saving images to a different path, right? The name that we're saving here is just that final extension, but it might be safer to actually save that full path rather than just the name. And so what we're going to do is actually, instead of using the name here, we're going to save the full path. So this way, even if the path gets weird or changes, we have that full path. We don't have to just guess what the path is and then append the name at the end. So let's actually start saving the path to the user profile. And because we're doing that, we're going to go back to the StorageManager, and the location that we're going to pull from, we no longer want this the origin path plus the file extension. And instead, we're just going to do try await, and we're going to go to the origin of the storage, and we're just going to say child And the path we're passing in here is going to have the full path, including all the subfolders. So I think this will work. All right, let's try to build. Oh, and then let's add in the data here. All right, let's try to build and run. Let's try to upload another image here. So this shortened path right here, this should turn into the full path after we upload another image. Let's see. Awesome. So now we have the full path there, and let's find out if it works. Let's restart the app so that on Appear, the image loads in. Bang. Looks like it's working. A little bit better, a little more optimized, but we are not done yet, guys. Nick, what on earth could we continue to do? We already have it working. Please just move on to the next video. No, I'm not going to do that. Sorry. You have to sit here and listen. If you use SwiftUI, you are probably very familiar with loading asynchronous images. And in SwiftUI, it is much more efficient to load the image in a view rather than, and in SwiftUI, the best way to load images is to have some sort of image container that is made for loading images, usually from a URL. And so the reason I say it is because the most popular one that Apple gives us is actually Async Image, right? And async, and even if you're not using Async Image, any image downloading SDK, if you use SD Web Image, or my personal favorite is Nuke UI, it's a very performant image loader, but any of these async image loaders require a download URL so that it downloads from the remote URL automatically. And the problem in our code right now is that we don't have a download URL, we only have an image path. And if I just put the image path, this is our image path here. If I were to just put this image path as the URL, it would obviously not work because that's not a URL. So in order to start using these image SDKs, we actually need to get the download URL for where this image is saved. And that's going to require a little extra code. First, let's try to get that URL. And so when we save profile image, and so let's go back to our StorageManager because we're going to have to use the storage SDK. And so let's create another function up here called getURL for image. And the image, all right, and this will be an asynchronous function that throws and returns, obviously, a URL. We're going to say let ref for reference, and we're going to reference, let's see, we want to do storage.storage, and then we want a reference with a path. So now we can actually take that same path that we're uploading, that full path, and pass it into here. And this is going to get us the actual reference at the database. And from here, we can then call .download URL, which is going to give us a URL. Now, it's important to note here that to get this download URL, we are making another asynchronous call. So even after we get the path back, we're now going to have to send another request to the server to get that download URL. And so let's just return this, try await. All right, let's test it out and see if it works. So let's go back to our profile view. And so now we're going to do the same thing, except instead of getting the image, we're going to get that download URL. Here we're going to say get URL for path, pass the path. This will be the URL that comes back. And we're going to set up a URL at the top of our screen here. So this will turn into URL of type URL. And on our screen, we're going to say if let URL. So if we get a URL, let's just put an async image on the screen. And we are going to use the one with a placeholder here. So I'm going to pass in the URL, the scale. I don't think that we need image. This will be the image. I'll put the image on the screen. Let's make it all of these modifiers on the image. And the placeholder, I'm going to make the placeholder a progress view. So now that we're using this, we get these nice placeholders while it's loading. I'm just going to make the placeholder the exact same size so that there's no jankiness when it loads. Delete this. Let's build and run, see if it works. Now we're using async image, which is a little bit better. Go to the profile, and looks like the image is there. That was awesome. Great job, guys. Great work, great work, great work. I think we can improve on this even more. So the problem now is that with this setup, every image we want to load, we have to do this extra fetch request to get the URL, right? But once we upload the URL, the actual URL that we're going to download from is not going to change. And so instead of doing this every time the image is coming on the screen, because that's going to be a lot of extra fetch requests, we should actually do this as we upload the image. So we're going to go back into the save profile image. And before we upload the path, we're going to actually try to get the URL. So we'll say let URL equal, and we'll pass in the path here. And then we'll actually upload the URL string to the user's profile image. So now what we're going to save in here is the actual download URL itself. And so what that's going to let us do is we no longer need to fetch the URL, and we can just say if let URL string equals viewModel.url.user.photo URL. No, that's not what we said. Profile image path. We should now obviously change this to profile image URL string. But if we can get a URL from that string, we can then do the same thing and save that extra async fetch request every single time. Say let URL. I know, very cool stuff, very cool stuff. This is taking us almost an hour to upload and download images, but hopefully it's worth it because these are very crucial to your app. And let's upload a new image so we get that URL going here. And I'm going to restart the app. And bang, it's working. Cool. So we can see now the full Firebase URL is working. And if I just copy this URL and paste it into the browser, we can get the actual image from the URL so that we know that it is working, which is awesome and epic. All right, and the very last thing that I want to just show you guys is we can do a function called delete image, in which we try await, and we have some sort of collection reference. Let's call it let's say path of type, maybe a string. And so up here we were getting the path from the actual path, and I think we should just maybe make that a function, func get path for image, pass in a path of type string, return a storage reference, and this will then be get path for image, path, and down here we can say path for image, and then call delete, which is async, and one thing we're going to need now is actually we're going to need that path back. And with the last update we did, we actually decided to start saving the URL to the user profile and not path for the image to the user profile. And now that's causing us a problem when we want to actually delete the image. And so in this case, we might want to upload both the path and the URL to the user. And so in the database user, we might want to include a profile image. Let's say we could say profile image path alongside a profile image URL, and then just let's copy this URL, profile image path URL, 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 right, URL, URL, and URL and URL. Cool. And then when we upload the user profile image path, we want to do the path as well as the URL of type string. And we should say both URL, pass in URL. All right. When we go back to our profile view model, it's going to tell us, it's going to yell at us and say we need to pass in URL as well. And so we're going to pass in path and the URL.absolute string. And let's do again the URL and the path. URL.absolute string. Build and run this. Last but not least, let's add a button on our profile view that says, so if we actually get this image, let's also add in here a button. And now we just need to update. So the URL string is actually the image path URL. And then we can also say if let image path equals view model dot user dot image path. We can add in a button. We can add a button with a title that says delete image and press enter. And in our view model, we'll create one final function to wrap up this extremely long video for just managing images. And we're going to say view model dot delete profile image. And I'm going to pass in the path of type string and delete profile image. Let's get the path. So we'll say guard let user, let path equals user dot profile image path. Path is the one we want. And we're going to delete that image. And if we do delete the image, we then should also update the user profile with the new data. So in this update user profile image path, let's actually make these optional so that if we don't have it, we set that back equal to nil. Because once we delete it, we're going to want to also delete it from our user profile. And I think this is going to yell at us, but I think it still works as null because Firebase does support null types. Yeah, I think it works. Let's find out. Try await, and then let's say update image path to nil and nil. And last but not least, let's finally go to back to our profile view, and in the button we're going to call view model dot delete profile image. And I don't think we actually need this. Let's just make this an underscore here, or let's just make sure if this is not equal to nil, then we put the button on the screen. Let's build, let's run, and hopefully it works, and then we can move on from Firebase Storage. I gotta apologize to you guys. This video was way longer than I had expected, literally just for uploading and downloading images. I guess I tried to include all the tips and tricks because my first couple Firebase apps, I did not structure it as well as we did in this video, and it caused a lot of problems. And that's why I guess I'm trying to save for you guys. Let's try this again. Let's upload an image, see if it works. I got a success. I'm going to click off and click back. Got our new image here. I see the image path and the image URL in Firebase. And now let's delete it. And path went set to null, and I think the image is gone. Awesome. That is it for storage for the whole playlist. So there's a lot to unpack in one video, but we basically just uploaded and downloaded images. We looked at a whole bunch of ways to do both of those things, and then we deleted images. Overall, overarching high-level notes here is that storage works just like any other file manager. You have folders, and then inside the folders, you have documents. When you upload a document, you need to make sure you're giving it some metadata with a type. You also want to name your images. And after you upload, you then want a reference to where you uploaded it in your database. So we were saving the profile path as well as the URL. And there's also something called the name. And depending on how you're going to download the images at a later time, you might want to choose one or the other or both and then deal with that. In my app, if I had like a user with a whole bunch of images, like maybe a dating app where you upload 5 images or Instagram where you upload 100 images, we would probably want to make a sub collection and have documents for each of those. And each document would include the path, the URL, the date created, and all that other good stuff. We are not going to write security rules for the storage, but they work the same way as Cloud Firestore, so you can go ahead and write your own, and that's it. Storage is great, and it is where you should be uploading your images, your videos, your audio files, and things like that. Feel free to leave a comment on this video if it was way too long and yell at me, because it was very long. I'm going to chop it up after this, so hopefully it's not as long as I'm seeing it right now. This was enjoyable. We are done with storage. Hope you guys liked it. Please, please, please leave a comment if this was too much. I need to know if I'm going too far into detail for you guys and I got to tone it back or what. Either way, I'm having fun. Hope you're having fun. Thank you guys for watching. As always, I am Nick. This is Swiftful Thinking, and I will see you in the next video.